This is Trial Transcripts Exposed by Crime in Court with Heather. Raw courtroom reads with my commentary. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Crime in Court. This is Trial Transcripts Exposed. We are reading through the Menendez Brothers' second trial because we don't have video of that. So the only thing we do have is the transcript. And we are on the defense's case, part 43. Erik Menendez is still on the stand. What's the word? He's on or I'm sorry, he's on direct so his own attorney is doing the questioning. I pointed out last time that this time around I'm missing that connection that Leslie Abramson had with Erik, and I'm not feeling that mother protective energy that she had with him, because obviously Barry Levin is doing the questioning, if you recall, because somehow she became a witness with something, I don't remember what, and so they were going to try to like get her off the case or whatever, and so she's like, okay, then I just won't cross-examine Erik, and because something was implicated that like she did some wrongdoing, which never no wrongdoing was ever found. But for whatever reason, she was not able to do the cross-examination, or the why do I keep saying cross? Sorry, she was not able to do the direct examination with Erik for whatever reason, or for that reason. So now we have her co-counsel, Mr. Levin, doing the direct examination. Finally, I said it right. I have a migraine, or not quite a migraine, but it feels like it could go there. So I have a little bit of coffee. So I'm going to take some pauses here and there to sip because caffeine helps my head. Mm. One second. We also have some new members. Hold on. All right. So we do have a couple new members. Let me read those off to you. The Feral Chinchilla is a new member. Gigi's Rock is a new member. Frumpy Girl is a new member. Lydia Bell, 4571. And I don't know how to say this. It is FUQUAY Steve 271. So however you say that, I apologize. I don't know. Welcome to Justice Insider. We are going to be doing our first members only video um next week. So look for that. It is titled Debunked and Dissected, and we are going to be talking about the read technique, which is the technique that officers, or most officers, are trained to use in order to get confessions. And the problem with it is that it's so good, it gets innocent people to confess. So we're going to talk about that in Debunked and Dissected next week. So before, yeah, I think that's all my announcements for today. If you want to be a Justice Insider, $2.99, you get early access to all videos, the corruption files, trial transcripts exposed, and innocence lost. You'll get those at least 24 hours in advance, if not more. I've been just as soon as I upload it, I might, it might be a couple days early, and you might get access to it before everybody else. In addition to that, you get resources and all sorts of other things, which you can look for on my YouTube channel. All right, and you can sign up there. All right, so let us get started here. Where did my pen go? Hold on, I gotta write timestamps down for myself. One second. All right. So the court, Judge Weisberg says the court, okay, let's have the jury out, please. So the jury comes back out, they enter the courtroom, and the following proceedings were held. The court says the jury's back and will continue with direct examination. This is December 12th, 1995. Mr. Levin says, Mr. Menendez, how long ago did this happen? 6 years ago. How old were you then? Objection, asked and answered, overruled. The witness says, I was 18. 25 now? Yes. Do you have any clearer recollection of what you saw and what you did when you entered that room than you do right now? No. Have you, the images, the things that you see, the feelings that you have they changed in any way from August 20th, 1989 until today? They've never changed. And why did you shoot your parents? I was afraid. Stop them from killing us. You say to stop them from killing you? When did you have that belief? When I was at the top of the stairs right after the blow up with my father. So, in the moment. When the blow up with your father took place, you testified that you thought that he was going to have sex with you. He was. Why did you feel that he would have sex with you? Because of his anger, because he told me to get in my room and he said he'd be there in a minute. It's just what I was present in my mind. I knew what was going to happen to us. I just knew that he was. Had your father used sex with you as a form of punishment before? Yes. Do you think that that was going to happen on August the 20th? There was anger, yes. Did you ever see your mother crawling when you were inside the den? She was not crawling. Did you ever shoot her when she was in any other position other than standing? I have no idea. Did you ever stand over her and shoot her as she lay on the ground? I never got close enough to the coffee table to do that. Did you ever shoot your father in the head? I don't know. You have seen photographs, have you not, of the back of your father's head? Yes. And you've seen all the crime scene photographs that have been displayed in this trial before. You've been shown those photographs before. I never saw those photographs until the trial, the first trial. So the first trial, you saw the photographs of your parents? Yes. You saw the photographs of them dead? Yes. At the first trial. And of course, you saw them here? Yes. And you saw the wound in the back of your father's head? Yes. Did you inflict that wound? My brother did. When you were inside the room, you testified that you heard the sounds of gunfire. Gunfire from all over. Did you know from what that gunfire was coming? Or from whom? I'm sorry, from whom that gunfire was coming? I thought it was coming from my gun, my brother's gun, my parents' guns. I thought they were firing at us. We were firing. I wasn't thinking. And so these are reflections. I'm looking back on what was going through my head. At the time, these things, maybe they were flashes in my mind. I don't know. Did you see any guns in the room after you picked up the shotgun shells and left? I didn't look at that time. Had you seen any? No. Where did you go when you left the house? Or, first of all, where did you put the shotgun shells that you picked up? Put them in the back of my car, or the car. I remember I remember one the next morning was in front of my seat, so I some of them must have been throughout the car. When you picked up the shells, Mr. Menendez, did you put them in your pockets? I don't remember. I carried them in some way back to the car. Do you know how many shells you picked up? No. Was Lyle Menendez picking up shells as well? Yes. Did you see how Lyle Menendez, or what Lyle Menendez did with the shells that he picked up? He can't. I don't remember seeing Lyle again until I was in the car. I know he was picking up shells with me and going to the car with me, but I don't have a memory of it. I just want to point out these are all consistent with everything that Erik is saying now is all consistent with the testimony from his first trial. So he's never really like veered off of that story. So it's important to note. And your car was parked where at this time? In the carport in front of the house. And your car is the Ford Escort? Yes. And when you say he put the shells in the back of your car, in what manner did you deposit them there? I assume I just threw them in the car. I wanted to get out of there at that point, and I don't remember. Did you see Lyle Menendez put his shells in the Ford Escort? No. What did you do after you put the shells inside the car? I got in the car and we left. Where was your shotgun? I put it in the car. Where did you put it in your car? I threw it in the back. What about Lyle Menendez's shotgun? Where did he put his? In the back as well. Did you cover them with anything? No, I didn't. So you just threw them in the car? Yes. By the way, the area in the front of your house where your car was parked, is that visible from the street? Yes. What separates it, if anything, the area where your car was parked, the carport, and anyone driving by on Elm Drive? There's an iron fence with iron bars a foot apart. Cars about 15 feet away from the side of the street, 10 feet away from the side of the street. So could a person walking down the street hypothetically look over and see your car? Yes. Could a person driving by Elm Drive, either direction, hypothetically north or south, hypothetically see your car? Yes. And when you were loading your shotgun, first unloading the bird shot and then loading your shotgun, were you in a position where people, if they were on the sidewalk, either walking or on the street driving by in the manner I previously indicated, would they be able to see you in that position? Yes. What did you do after you got into the car? Where did you go? I remember making a right out of the driveway and making a left. We didn't go up to Sunset. There was a street before Sunset that you can turn on. I remember we were driving on that. Right is going north toward Sunset. If Sunset is north, then that's where we headed. And you went to the street that would be before or south of Sunset and turned right? Right. It's at the corner just below Sunset. So you turned east. If you were going north, you turned to the right, which would be east. No, I turned to the left, and that would be west. Did you have an idea or were you going somewhere? At that point, we weren't sure where to go. We were quickly talking back and forth about whether we should try to get rid of the guns or where we should find a place to be before then. We had told our parents that we would be at the movies and we had just headed over there. Remember, they were trying to go solidify their alibi with movie tickets, but it didn't work because it was too late. Anyways, they couldn't purchase the tickets because the movie had already started and it was too far in, so they wouldn't give them tickets, if you recall. Who was driving the car? My brother was driving the car. So, where did you go? To the Century 14th Theater. Where is the Century 14th Theater? In Century City. Where did you go there? Or why did you go there? There wasn't much else place to go. Were you going to do anything in particular when you got to the Century 14th Theater? We were going to try to get tickets for the theater and for the movie. Why were you going to try to obtain tickets for the movie? We had no place to say that we were, and it was the only place we could say that we were. You say no place to say that you were. Who were you going to tell? The police? Yes. And had you made a decision to contact the police? No. But at that point, we were scrambling around, or I don't remember if I felt that we should have gotten rid of the guns first or if that was Lyle. I just remember talking very quickly and making a hasty decision to go over to the theater, try to get some tickets so that we could give the police a place that we had been instead of at the home. So you were going to establish an alibi, right? What happened when you got to the theater? I remember we parked on the side street to the theaters. I remember running upstairs in front of the valet parking. The booth is on a walkway. I don't remember how many feet in front of the stairs, 50 feet. I remember there were some people in front of us, and I remember being at the ticket counter. When you say you remember being at the ticket counter, was Lyle with you? Yes. Where was he? On my side. Where did you park the car? On the side street next to the theaters, it's a big mall complex. Did you attempt to purchase tickets for any particular theater or movie? Yes. What movie was it that you wanted to purchase a ticket for? A movie called License to Kill. Did you obtain those tickets? No. Why were you going to select the movie License to Kill? My brother had planned was supposed to meet a friend of his who was waiting for him inside the theater at that time. Who's the friend? Carrie Parker. And he was in the Batman movie theater. And so we couldn't get tickets to the movie because Carrie knew we weren't in there. So the only other choice, I don't remember what movies were playing at the time, but License to Kill was. So, well, why did you pick License to Kill? We were just looking for a different movie other than Batman, and I don't remember now. Had you seen License to Kill before? Yes, I had. And was that a concern that you had to get some tickets to a movie that you had already seen? Probably. Did you get those tickets? No. Why not? The lady told us that the movie had already been sold out, and apparently the only other movie playing at the time or that we had seen was Batman. So we just asked for those tickets to the 8 o'clock showing. Did you buy them? She said that we wouldn't get them because the movie was almost over. So we just asked. I don't remember if Lyle asked for tickets for the next showing or just any tickets of that movie, and she gave them to us. And did you look at the tickets? I remember being in my car looking at the tickets. What were you looking for? To see if there was a timestamp on the tickets, whether it was what showing it was for. Was there a timestamp on them? Yes. And what did the tickets indicate? It was for the later showing of the movie, the 10:30 movie or 10:15 movie. And what did you do then? I ripped up the tickets and either threw them away in my car or threw them out the window. I don't remember now. I got rid of them. What did you do? Did you leave the Century 14 movie theater? Yes, I did. Where did you go? Went looking for a place to get rid of the guns. Did you have any idea where you would get rid of the guns? We were coming up with ideas and I suggested Mulholland, and so I showed Lyle how to get there. How long did it take you, would you say, from the time that you left your house to get to the movie theater, purchase the tickets, and then leave? Theater is 5 minutes away from the house, I would guess. It's been a long time. We weren't at the theater more than a minute or two. Didn't take us more than a minute or two to get back to the car, and then we left. Did you eventually get rid of those shotguns? Yes. Where did you get rid of them? Off the Coldwater on Mulholland Highway or Drive. I took them and dashed down the side of a mountain. I remember tripping and trying to get down the mountains. It was pretty steep, and just putting them on the side of the mountain and racing to get back up. I don't remember how many feet it was down. Approximately, how long did it take you to drive from the movie theater to this location in Milholland at Coldwater? I don't know. Were you driving? No. Was Lyle Menendez familiar with the area? No, he wasn't. Were you giving him directions? Yeah, I was telling him to slow down at times. He was driving too fast and rushing, and I was telling him to make a right or a left there. What was Lyle Menendez's demeanor at this time? He was shaking at this time. He was in shock and he wasn't crying, but he was frazzled. How about yourself? I was still, my heart was still pumping really fast, and I was just hyperactive in terms of saying, do this, make a right here in the same type of state. So they both were, they were acting on nerves, adrenaline probably. And I just want to point out the guns were never found. So if you think about it, somebody out there probably has them. Because I would assume someone at this point in time, it's been how many years? At this point in time, somebody probably stumbled upon them and may have taken them for themselves. right? I mean, or else they're still sitting on the side of Mulholland Drive down the mountain. I don't know. Nobody ever found them. I just find that odd that law enforcement couldn't find them. Anyways, so during that particular time for Mr. Menendez, were you still operating under the firm belief that you had to shoot your parents after they were dead? At this time when you left the movie theater, yes. I don't know what you mean by the question. Well, did you believe you when you killed your parents that they were about to kill you? Yes. Did you believe you had any choice to do what you did? Not if I wanted to live. Did you still have this belief when you were at the movie theater and when you went to the uh yes, to dump the shotguns? I understand what you mean. Yes. Now, were you familiar with the area of Coldwater in Mulholland? I'd driven up it many times before. Do you have any idea how long it took you to get there? Did you go directly there? We went straight from the movie theater up Coldwater. I no longer remember how long it was, 10 minutes, 15 minutes in terms of getting up there and getting back. I don't know. Now, when you got to an area, did you pick a specific area to get rid of the shotguns? He just pulled over on the side of the road where it was possible to pull over. I remember there was a lot of trees around us. It was dark. You couldn't see very well. And did Lyle Menendez get out of the car? I don't remember him doing so. So you got out of the car. Yes. You got the shotguns from the back? Right. Did you take the shotgun shells out of the back of your car? No. Why not? There were shells all over the car at this point, and I just grabbed the guns. I don't know why anymore. So you said you had to go down a steep bank? It was a steep bank. I remember falling at one point and sliding down. At one point, I'd gotten so far, I just decided to stop and put the guns there and run back up. In what manner did you leave those shotguns? I had put them next to a bush and tried to brush something over them, but they were exposed. I remember seeing the lights way up at the top of the hill at the top. Was this a residential area? No. Where did you go after you deposited those shotguns in the manner that you just testified? We went to Santa Monica. And what did you do in Santa Monica? My brother had plans from earlier that day to meet Perry Berman in Santa Monica, and we were trying to get over there. We were like an hour late or something, and so we just decided to go there. Do you know where it was that your brother had planned to meet Perry Berman? It was a taste of LA or a wine tasting, something at the Civic Center in Santa Monica. Did Lyle Menendez continue to drive your car from the location at Mulholland? Yes. And did he drive over to the Santa Monica Civic Center? Yes. Did he drive directly from Coldwater and Mulholland to the Santa Monica Civic Center? I know that we stopped at a gas station at one point. That would have been a good spot to look in your car and get the shells out, but they didn't even do that. I no longer remember whether it was before or after we'd gotten to the Civic Center. I think we got lost at one point in there at Santa Monica finding the Civic Center. Why did you stop at a gas station? To get rid of everything in the car. And you did stop at the gas station? Yes. And what did you do at the gas station? I remember there was a car wash at the gas station. We parked near the dumpsters and quickly got out of the car and tried to find everything that was in the car. It was dark. I remember seeing red spatters on my pants. I took them off. So blood spatters? Yes. Where were they? On my pants. Where on your pants? I remember seeing them on my right thigh. What kind of pants were you wearing? I believe I was wearing blue jeans. So what did you do with your pants? I took them off, threw them in the dumpster. When you took off your pants and threw them in the dumpster, did you put on other pants? Either sweats or pants that I had in the car. Where did you get the sweats or the pants? I had clothes piled up in the back of the car, high up. How long had those clothes been in your car? They recycled in terms of they got washed, but it was constantly going to tennis tournaments in the back and they just remained there. I don't remember. I don't remember having the car and there not being clothes in there. So you always had clothes in your car. Yes. So you throw the pants in the dumpster in a bag or did you just throw them? I think we were throwing things in one of the other tennis bags that we had and threw that in the dumpster. Was this a tennis bag that you had in your car? Right. Did you get any shells out of your car? As many as we could find at that point. And what did you do after that? I don't remember if we were heading towards Santa Monica. The gas station was in Santa Monica. I don't remember if we were heading towards the Civic Center or on our way back. I know at some point we got to the Civic Center. What about your shoes? Did you throw those away, your shoes? I I think I did. What kind of shoes did you have on? I believe I had on slippers. Why did you throw away your shoes? For the same reasons. I no longer remember, but I threw them away. It was because if I threw them away, it was because I saw red spatters on them. Did Lyle Menendez throw away any of his clothes? I can't remember at this point. I don't have a clear recollection of him doing so. Do you recall do you recall driving or arriving at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium or Center? Yes. And do you recall clearly at this time whether it was before or after you went to the gas station? No. Was the sequence that you went from Mulholland possibly to Santa Monica and then to the dumpster, or you went from Coldwater Canyon to the dumpster and then to Santa Monica Civic Auditorium? Was it one of those two? Yes. And do you have anything in your mind that it could have been any other than those two options? We weren't any other places that night. Do you have any idea how long it took you to arrive at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium from the time you left your house, the entire trip, going to the movie, to Coldwater, the gas station, and then to Santa Monica Civic Auditorium? Under an hour. What happened when you got to the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium? I remember that it was closing. I believe at this point I had started to cry. My brother told me to stay in the car, quickly ran into the Civic Center to try to find Perry. I remember him coming out many minutes later saying that he couldn't find Perry and that he had called Perry on the phone and that we were going to try to meet him at a restaurant in Beverly Hills, the Cheesecake Factory. Did Perry have a cell phone? How did he call Perry? Larry Menendez came up, Larry, sorry, that's Lyle Menendez. Lyle Menendez came out of the Civic Center telling you that he had talked to Perry on the telephone? Yes. How long was Lyle Menendez gone from your location till he returned? I just remember him being gone for a very long, it seemed like a long minute. The minutes were passing very slowly. And 10 minutes, 15 minutes? Well, what did you do? I waited in the car. After Lyle Menendez returned, did you go to that restaurant? We attempted to, but we never made it there. Was there a reason why you didn't make it to the restaurant? Yes. What was that reason? I wasn't in any condition to be able to meet Perry and pretend I was normal, and neither was my brother, so Lyle just decided to go home instead of going over to the restaurant. Why were you going to go home? Because I couldn't meet Perry. I was crying at this point, and the shock had been fading, and I was trembling, and there was just no way that I would be present myself normally to Perry. Wouldn't be able to present myself normally to Perry. And so we went home to see if the police had come. And it had now been an hour, and no one had come by the home, or but had come by the time that we had left the home. Figured that there was probably no one there now, we were going to have to call the police. So, did you return? Yes. Where did you park your car? In front of the house on the side of the street. Did you enter the house? Yes. Had the police or were the police there when you got there? No. Was anyone there at the house when you got there? The neighborhood was quiet. Now, at this time, Mr. Menendez, what were you still under the firm belief that your parents were going to kill you when you shot them? Yes. What did you do when you entered the house? I remember walking straight to the den. Had you had any discussion with Lyle Menendez concerning what you would tell the police? I don't know if I'd call it a discussion, but yes. What was the conversation that you had? The substance of the conversation that you had with Lyle Menendez concerning what you would tell the police? We were talking back and forth very quickly in short sentences, and we didn't know if anyone had seen us with the guns in front of the house. We said to say that we were behind the house when we left, that we had come home to meet to get some ID before meeting Perry. Just say that we were at the movies when my parents were killed. Pretty much that. When did you have this conversation with Lyle Menendez concerning what you would tell the police? Before arriving at the house, coming back from Santa Monica. Was that the first time that you discussed what you would tell the police during the trip back to Beverly Hills from Santa Monica? Was that the first time that you had discussed with Lyle Menendez what you would tell police? I remember after we left the house, we were trying to figure out what we would tell the police, and that's how we ended up going to the movie theater on the trip back. That was the first time, yes. That you incorporated the other things that you would tell the police. We were just making it up as we went along, and it's pretty clear that that is kind of how it went because their plans didn't go as planned. You know, they wanted to get tickets for this movie. If they were pre-planning it, they would have got tickets beforehand, and that wouldn't have been an issue, right? So they weren't able to get the tickets that they needed to support their alibi, right? So it definitely is haphazard, their plans. We were just making it up as we went along, and before we got back to the house, we knew we were about to call the police, so Lyle, we wanted to make sure that we said the same things. Where did you go when you entered the house? I remember walking directly towards the den. Did you enter the den? Yes. Did Lyle Menendez enter the den? I remember he was in the den at one point, pulling me out of the den. I had started to cry loudly. I went back into the den. Who entered the den first? I did. Pardon me? I did. Were the lights on or off? They were on. Where was Lyle Menendez? I don't remember. I wasn't focused on Lyle. Did you look at your mother? I looked at my father on the couch, my mother on the floor. Mr. Menendez, take a look at Exhibit 330. Is that what you saw, your father? Yes. Look at Exhibit 331. Is that your mother? Yes. What did you do in the room? I was looking at my father and I looked where the guns were in the room. I looked where the guns were in the room, any weapons in the room. I remember noticing that there were none, and I kept looking. I remember staring at my father in particular and just being in shock that my dad could die and that he was sitting in front of me dead. And I remember just thinking how wrong this looked. How wrong that looked? My mother on the floor, my father on the couch. I just remember saying that to myself. Why did you look around for weapons? Because I thought there had been guns in the room. I thought that they had guns that there was fire from. So he thought that they were already firing guns in the room when they went in. I was just looking did anything come to mind? Sorry, did anything come to mind after you discovered that there were no guns? I was just looking at my father in particular. I didn't want to walk over to my mother. I remember her lying on the ground and just staring at my father, thinking about, I just couldn't believe what I was seeing. Well, did you do that to your father? Objection vague in terms of what counsel is referring to as that. The court says, rephrase the question. Look at Exhibit 330, Mr. Menendez. Did you do that to your father? Again, once again, it's vague. The court says, what are you referring to? Ms. Abramson says, excuse me, Your Honor, could I have a moment? They confer. Mr. Levin says, Mr. Menendez, did you feel that you had made a mistake? Yes. What mistake do you feel that you made? Just killing them. Were you thinking anything else? Yes. What were you thinking? Just that how wrong my father looked sitting on the couch. What have I done? I know my brother, I was crying. My brother pulled me out of the room. I remember he ran back up the stairs and I was drawn to the room again. I just didn't want to be with them, but I couldn't leave them. And I just remember looking all around the room, looking at them. My dad just didn't look like my dad anymore. This part I don't remember learning in trial one, that he kept going back to the room and trying to look at them. You thought your parents were going to kill you when you entered the room? Objection leading. Rephrase the question. Did you think your parents were going to kill you when you entered the room? Yes. Objection vague as to time. Okay. The court says, which time when he entered the room? Objection sustained. The answer stricken. Mr. Levin says, before you shot your parents, you believed that they were going, did you believe that they were going to kill you? Yes. Did you think that your parents would know that it was you that was shooting at them when you entered the room? It didn't flash in my mind at that point. I remember when I was in the room afterwards, all these things went through my head and in the days later. Were you confused? Yes. Objection vague as to time. Sustained, the answer stricken. When you entered the room and saw that there were no guns in the room, did you think about what your parents might have thought at that time that you shot them? Of my mom. What is it that you thought? I just wondered if she knew it was me. Was she scared? Did she understand? Was she hurting? I couldn't get the feelings pushed back from my mind enough. And just seeing her, my father there, nothing else in the room, I just felt really bad, like a bad person. And I wanted to know what she had thought when I entered the room. How long did you remain in the room? At this time, when she discovered that there were no guns. When you discovered that there were no guns. It seemed like a very long time. Do you know where your brother Lyle Menendez was? I know that he had run up the stairs by this point. Do you know what he did when he ran upstairs? I know that he called the police. Were you in the room when Lyle Menendez called the police? I don't know at what point Lyle was calling the police exactly in terms of what seconds. I know I was in the room for a very long time. I know I began screaming after thinking all of these things. I was screaming no, and I remember being out in the foyer, and at some point I remember being in my room calling Mark Heffernan, my coach. Mr. Menendez, would you have burst into the den and began firing your weapon if you knew that your parents did not have guns inside? No. Did you ever get that thought that you should run away? No. What happened? What was the next thing that you remember happening? Strike that. You said you called Mark Heffernan. Where did you call Mark Heffernan from? My bedroom phone. I grabbed it, put it on the floor, and I was kneeling on the floor. I remember punching in the numbers. Why did you call Mark Heffernan? I needed a friend. Was Mark Heffernan home? Yes. What conversation did you have with Mark? I just told him that my parents were dead and I needed him. What did Mark say? He didn't understand at first. I had to keep saying it over and over, and he said he would come over right away. Well, what did you do after you got off the telephone with Mark Heffernan? I don't know. I don't know if my brother came into the bedroom to get me. I just remember going out of the foyer. My brother telling us that the police had said get out of the house. Did you leave the house? Yes. Where was your car? On the side of the road in front of my house. On Elm Drive? Right. How was it positioned with respect to your house? Was it right in front of the house, your house? My mailbox is on the right side of my driveway. My back is towards the house. My car was in front of the mailbox next to my driveway. Were there shotgun shells still inside your car? Yes. And how did you know that there were still shotgun shells inside your car? Because after the police had arrived and put up the tape, they put up the tape around my car, and the next morning I was searching the car and found the shells. So both live and expended shells. I remember finding one shell on my seat. I think it was expended, meaning it had been shot. Um, were there were there also live rounds in your car? The one shell that sticks out in my mind is the one in the front seat. I know that there were shell cartons and wrappings in my car still. Well, what was the first thing that happened when you exited the house after the police had arrived? One of the officers had to get down on the ground and out spread out our hands and legs to search us. And I remember he was trying to talk to us. I was crying. I remember seeing an ambulance way down the street and noticing that no one was going to the house. What's the next thing that you remember? At some point, they took us down to the police station. And when you went down to the police station, were you transported inside a police car? I remember being in the back of a police car with my brother. Your brother seated next to you? He was seated on my right. And a police officer was driving the car. Yes. Did they take you directly to Beverly Hills Police Station? Yes. Did you talk to any police officer at the scene about what had happened? No. What happened when you got to the police station? I met Detective Edmonds. I remember that my brother had wanted me to go into the interview room first. In the back of the police car, he told me that if I broke down talking to the detective and told them that we were responsible for this, he didn't want to have to go in there and tell them something different. So he wanted to make sure that I went in there first. When did you have that discussion with Lyle Menendez? In the back of the police car on the way to the station. While the officer was driving the car? Yes. Were you talking so the officer couldn't hear you? Yes. And when you got to the station, who was interviewed first? I was. Who interviewed you? Detective Edmonds. And what was it that well, let me ask you this. How long did that interview last? Just a few minutes. Did Sergeant Edmonds or Detective Edmonds ask you if you had any idea who had killed your parents? Yes. What did you tell him? I told him that I had no idea. Did you make any suggestion to Sergeant Edmonds that the Mafia was responsible for the death of your parents? No. Did you talk to Sergeant Edmonds about enemies? Did you say the words enemies to Sergeant Edmonds? I remember reading it in court. Do you recall Sergeant Edmonds asking you if you have any idea who may have done this, and you saying, no, my family has no enemies? Right. Do you recall asking Sergeant Edmonds, I almost called him enemies, Sergeant Edmonds, if your parents were dead? Yes. Why did you ask Sergeant Edmonds if your parents were dead? I still couldn't accept that they were gone from my life. I couldn't accept my father was capable of dying, and although I saw him on the couch and saw my mother on the floor, I just couldn't. I was still in shock, and I needed to hear him say it in order to believe that it was true. Now, you did not tell Sergeant Edmonds that you had killed your parents along with your brother, Lyle Menendez, did you? No. Why not? I didn't want to go to jail. I didn't want to do that to Lyle. I was hardly able to talk to him. You were released from this interview at some point in time. As soon as I asked the question, are they dead? He told me that they were, and I couldn't stop crying, and so he ended the interview. Because Erik Menendez couldn't stop crying, the interview ended. early. Did anyone search you? Any police officer search you? At the scene they did. But did they do a gunshot residue test or gunpowder residue? No, because if they had, they would have gotten a positive result and they would have had their suspects right away. So they searched the brothers, but they didn't do gunshot residue test, which would have been 2 seconds on their hands, and they could have solved it right then and there. Okay, but did any officer search you at the police station? No. Did anyone or anything did did anyone do anything to your hands, like spray any substance on them or do any tests? No. After the interview was over, where did you go? I went out to the lobby area. Mark Heffernan was there. My brother was standing. I told him that it was okay, that he could go in and talk to Sergeant Edmonds, just my way of telling him that I hadn't told him that we had done it. And I sat down next to Mark. And did Lyle Menendez then go in with Sergeant Edmonds? Yes. And you remained with Mark Heffernan? Yes. How long did you stay there with Mark? Until Lyle got out of the interview, 20 minutes, half hour, however long the interview was. Well, what did you do after Lyle Menendez left the interview? Mark drove us back to the house. The Beverly Hills house? Yes. And did you or were you able to go inside your house? No, by this time there was police tape around and we asked to get to my car and they told us no, that they had to search the car first. Why did you want to get to your car? I saw that the car was inside the police tape and I knew that there was a good chance there was still a lot of stuff in the car. And so I wanted to get to the car. When you say stuff, you mean evidence that could connect you to the shooting of your parents? That would, yeah. And you wanted to do that with that evidence. Or you wanted to do what? With, oh my God, I cannot read today. My brain hurts. My head hurts. I'm sorry. I'm feeling a little better from my caffeine, but still, that was my third cup of coffee. You wanted to do what with the evidence? I wanted to get rid of it. Why? I didn't want the police to know that I had done this. Why not? There were a whole slew of reasons. I didn't want to go to jail. Sergeant Edmonds was a really nice man and I didn't want him to know that I could do this. I didn't want to have to tell the police this. I want to scroll forward a little bit to the after the interview that you had on September the 17th, 1989. Do you recall that interview? Yes. Where were you on September 17th, 1989? At my Aunt Terry's house. Where does Aunt Terry live? In New Jersey. Cranberry, New Jersey? Yes. And did you ultimately get interviewed with Detective Zoller, Detective Linehan of the Beverly Hills Police Department? Yes. Was this in the afternoon of the 17th of September 1989? Yes. Did you know before Detective Zoller and Detective Linehan arrived that they were going to come? Yes. How did you know that? I had spoken with Detective Zoller or my brother, maybe it was my aunt. Someone had spoken with Detective Zoller on the phone either that day or the day before, and he had asked us to remain. I was supposed to fly back to New Jersey, so he'd asked us to stay so that he could talk to us. Did you make any attempt to avoid Detective Zoller from interviewing you? I didn't really want to interview with Detective Zoller, but he asked us to stay, and we did. Did you ever think about running away? Where? You had a passport? No, I didn't think about that. When you were interviewed by Detective Zoller, did he make it clear? Sorry, did Detective Zoller make it clear to you that he wanted to talk to you about the events that occurred on August the 20th, 1989? Yes. What do you remember telling Detective Zoller about that day? What did you tell him? I told him about the whole day, I told him that nothing much had happened on the night, that it was a pretty ordinary day, and that I was at the movies when my parents were killed. Did you talk about the fishing trip that you had the day before? I'm sure I did. I don't have a specific recollection of doing so, no. Did you at some point mention to Detective Zoller that you had discovered in your what you had discovered in your blue jeans, a hole? Yes. What did you tell them about that? Just that I had a pair of blue jeans with, it seemed like, bullet holes in them. You told that to Detective Zoller? Yes. And how did you convey to him that you had a pair of blue jeans with what you believed to be bullet holes in it? How did you convey it to him? Through words. Sorry, you caught me. No, I mean, I just said it during the interview. Why or how did you describe these holes in a manner that conveyed the impression that they weren't just tears in your blue jeans, that they were bullet holes? Did you tell him they were in a particular location in your pants? They looked like bullet holes to me, so I told him that they looked like bullet holes, I believe. I don't remember the specific words I used. I know I conveyed that message to him. Well, did Detective Solar follow up with any question about that? He told me that he wanted to see the jeans, but I don't remember him asking any more questions about that. No. Did he ask you how you got those holes in your blue jeans? I don't remember that. Did he ask you where the blue jeans were, or if the blue jeans were inside the room at the time of the shooting? I think so. I think he did. I think that crossed his mind. Did you see the police taking any pictures of the den when they came to your house? The next morning, they were fingerprinting and doing a lot of things inside the house. I don't remember if I actually saw them taking pictures or not. I think so. Did Detective Zoller ask you where those blue jeans were, Mr. Menendez? Yes. And what'd you tell him? That they were upstairs. Did he tell you to go get them and bring them to me right now? No. Did he ever ask you again for those blue jeans? I don't remember showing it to him. I may have. Did you tell Detective Zoller anything about smoke in the room? Yes. What did you tell him? I told him that there was a very slow, thick, slick yellow haze that hovered in the room. Was there such a thick haze as you just described at the time of the shooting? It was there after the shooting. Was it there when you returned when Lyle Menendez called 911? The smell of the smoke stayed in my mind. No, it wasn't. It wasn't there when we returned home. Did Detective Zoller ask you any follow-up questions with respect to the haze or the smoke? No. The only way you would see the haze or the smoke is if you would have been there either during the shooting or immediately after the shooting, because it dissipates in the air. It's not going to stay hovering. Did you tell Detective Zoller during this conversation that during the last few days or a week before their deaths that your parents had been locking the door to their bedroom? I brought it up in the conversation. Did did Detective Zoller follow up with any questions concerning any problems that would cause your parents to do that? I don't remember him doing so. Did you tell the police that there had been an argument between yourself, Lyle Menendez, and your parents in the week preceding their death? Yes. Did Detective Zoller follow up and ask you questions about the substance of that argument? No. What argument were you referring to when you told that to Detective Zoller? The one on Thursday night. And were your parents locking their door to their bedroom that week? I know that I was. I believed that they were. Did you tell Detective Zoller that your mother was a nervous lady and had bought a gun? Yes. Did Detective Zoller follow up on that information? I don't remember. Did you tell Detective Zoller that you felt your parents probably knew who the killers were? Yes. Why did you tell him that? I couldn't get these things out of my mind. The smell of the smoke I was smelling every day, every hour, thinking about whether my parents saw me every night afterwards, and I was just talking to Detective Zoller and things were coming out of my mouth. I can't give you a good reason why I was saying them. I didn't know what I was going to say next. Did Detective Zoller ever ask why it was that you thought that your parents knew their killers? No. Did you tell Detective Zoller that you wanted to get away from your father? I told him that I wanted to get away from him and go to college. Did Detective Zoller ask you why it was that you wanted to get away from your father and go to college? No. Did you tell Detective Zoller in this conversation on the 17th of September something about your future plans? Whatever plans I had at the time, I'm sure I had told him. Well, did you tell him that one of your plans was not to go to school this upcoming year? I had found out a few days before that I wasn't going to be doing that. Did you tell Detective Zoller that you were going to do in the future what you thought your father would want you to do? Yes. Did you tell Detective Zoller that you were going to train for tennis and go on tour? I think so. Did Detective Zoller tell you or say anything that would be inappropriate for you to do such a thing? No. He didn't say, if you hire tennis coaches and train for tennis and go on tour, Mr. Menendez, it's going to look like you killed your parents. No. Did you tell him that you think about your parents' death all the time? Yes. Did he follow up on that question? I'm sorry, on that statement? No. Your Honor, I know it's a couple minutes early, but this would be a good time for me to break. The court says, "Okay, we'll resume tomorrow at 8:30, and because of a scheduling situation involving a juror, we'll be recessing in the afternoon, but we'll try to work until 1 tomorrow and then break for the balance of the day. So, we'll work from 8:30 a.m. until 1 and then not to be in session in the afternoon. Don't discuss the case with anyone. Don't form any final opinions about it. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 8:30. The jury exited the courtroom and the following proceedings were held." So there's a little bit of argument here. They're not really arguments, they're just talking about scheduling anyways. But the court says, "Okay, yes, scheduling." Ms. Abramson says, "We're just having a potential witness crisis here. Tomorrow is a half a day. I imagine that my client will still be on the direct tomorrow, and then cross would start on Thursday. Mr. Khan estimates that his cross examination will take 3 days, but that's what Mr. Kuriyama estimated also, and it took 7. So I don't know how many days it really will take on the cross examination, but here's our dilemma, Judge. Our next witness, based on what we believe we understand is the court's notion of what's necessary foundationally to bring on other witnesses, our next witness is meant to be Dr. Wilson. However, apart from the fact that all of his pipes burst in his house today because of the freezing weather in Cleveland, which I just found out about, there is the fact that he's going to Australia on the 22nd for a long planned, pre planned vacation to his wife's family who live in Australia and is not due to return until January. I mean, his first day back would be January the 8th. So we're trying, this is December 12th. So we're trying to figure out what we can do vis-a-vis other witnesses, not to mention to fill up next week because I honestly don't believe Mr. Khan will only take 3 days. But even if he does only take 3 days and he's finished with my client on Monday, I would theoretically, we only have half a day scheduled. And as far as I understand it, for the 19th, the court says, yes, we have the juror who needs time off on the afternoon of the 19th, and then 2 jurors need off on the 22nd. Ms. Abramson says, I understood we weren't going to be in session on the 22nd. Court says, right. Ms. Abramson says, I'm looking at the possibility of what I can do with Dr. Wilson on the 19th and 20th because he has to be in Cleveland on the 21st to prepare to leave at the crack of dawn on the 22nd. So that gives me a day and a half of possible testimony from Dr. Wilson. I'm more than happy to start him and put him on, but I'm not sure that even if I were to finish direct, I'm not sure the prosecution would be happy with the bit of a that big of a gap, and I'm not sure that it would get us anywhere vis-a-vis laying a foundation for other witnesses. So we don't have to decide this right now. We're really in a dilemma here, and I can't ask him. I don't think it would be fair to ask him to cancel his family's vacation to Australia. The court says, what about witnesses for the co-defendant? Mr. Gessler says, witnesses for the co-defendant, Your Honor, also are dependent on the state of the case at this time. The court says, you mean after Wilson testifies? Most likely, says Mr. Gessler. The court says, what does that have to do with your decision? Mr. Gessler says, well, it has to do with my decision, Your Honor, as to how much such witnesses will be allowed to testify to. Under the court's ruling, as I understand it, some of the family members will be allowed to testify, but there have been no parameters set as to what they could testify to. The court says, well, that would have to do with the defense of Erik Menendez. I'm talking about your client. This is what they're able to go into as far as the essay going on in the House. What are these witnesses able to go into that hasn't been ruled on yet or determined by the court? He's saying it depends on Erik's defense. Ms. Abramson says, you see, my concern is I don't want to bring out the family members to testify to A, B, and C, and then I have to yank them back for D, E, and F. The court says, I understand that, but I thought you said you would be making a decision as to your client's testimony after Erik Menendez finished his testimony. Mr. Gessler says, I would be doing that, Your Honor. The court says, B, making a decision as to your client's testimony after the defendant, Erik Menendez, testified. Ms. Abramson says, I don't think he'd be prepared to put him on right after. Court says, we could do that after the Christmas break. Mr. Gessler says, put him on after the Christmas break? The court says, yes. Mr. Gessler says, if I decide to put him on, the court says, I'm saying if that's what you need to know before he testifies after the other defendant's testimony is completed, then perhaps we could do that. That will avoid the problem that Ms. Abramson is talking about. Ms. Abramson says, that would help me tremendously, Your Honor, but then if they decide not to call their client, we still have the problem of how to fill up January. Are we in session on the 2nd? The court says no, the 3rd. Ms. Abramson says, that gives me 3 days of downtime potentially to try to fill in with other witnesses. We could do it. I can think of a few people, but again, I'm not sure what the parameters are. Can we think about this overnight, all of us, and perhaps you can suggest what we should do next week? The court says, all right, perhaps once we get through with this direct examination, we'll have a better idea as to how long the cross will be. It's a little premature for the prosecutor to give you a firm estimate until he's heard all of the. Ms. Amerson says Dr. Wilson is coming in this weekend, and so he'll be available for the 2 days that he's available, the 19th and the 20th. But if it looks like by the end of this week that we're not really going to get the time from him, he'll come in, finish whatever work he's doing here, and then I'll tell him that he's got to be back here on the 8th. The court says, okay, we'll know more once we get into it. Ms. Abramson says, he did say, by the way, Your Honor, he might be willing to come back earlier than the 8th if the County of Los Angeles wanted to pay for a business class ticket from Australia, but I didn't think we were. The court says, is this videotape ready to play now? Mr. Levin says, it's ready. The court says, let's do it now then. The videotape is played. The court says, all right, the tape has been played. It has not been marked as an exhibit. Do you want to mark it? Mr. Levin says, yes, I do, Your Honor. The court says, all right, let's mark it as 368. Mr. Levin says, Your Honor, as a foundation. Mr. Erik Menendez will identify what is depicted in that video as being the location of the California service for Jose and Kitty Menendez. I believe it was at the Screen Actors Guild. Ms. Abramson says Directors Guild. Mr. Levin says Directors Guild here in California, and that additionally that he is familiar by from seeing that video of the specific shoes, that he can identify it from the video, the type of shoes that his brother was wearing, that they were not his father's shoes, that they were Lyle Menendez's shoes. In fact, that they were boots. The court says, okay, and assuming that this is testimony, what is the objection? Ms. Nahara for the state says, Your Honor, the people have no objection to the testimony. It's that the video, what it purports to be, isn't what we see in this picture. What we see is a couple of blurs, and they're saying that that this corroborates Erik Menendez's testimony, and it doesn't corroborate anything. It's just two big blurs. He could testify to anything, but I don't think the videotape corroborates that. And if the videotape doesn't corroborate that, all it is scenes from a funeral. The court says, okay, well, there's certainly nothing prejudicial in the tape recording. It doesn't show anything controversial any of uh, of any prejudicial nature whatsoever. It's for the trier of fact to determine whether or not the freeze frames or enlargements that are depicted there show what it is that the defendant will be testifying that he says they are. And certainly the prosecution has access to similar tapes, I think, and can present a contrary evidence that it deems appropriate. So the whole question is this didn't come into the first trial, I don't believe. But the question is whether Lyle Menendez was wearing his father's shoes at the trial, which somehow does that prove guilt or something if he wears his father's shoes? I have no idea, but whatever. Erik is going to testify that they were Lyle's shoes, not his father's shoes. So, but now the state says, well, it's too blurry. We can't use the video. Anyways, moving on. I think it can present any contrary evidence. He's saying the state can present any contrary evidence that it deems appropriate, but there's certainly nothing here that would bar its use during the course of the proceedings here. Therefore, the objection is overruled. Ms. Nahara says, Your Honor, there were two videotapes that the defense showed us this morning, and I'd ask that the court to order the defense to make a copy for us. Two videotapes? Ms. Nahara says, of this whole scene from the funeral. Mr. Levin says, This is what we're using, and we don't have to provide the prosecution with anything that we're not intending on using at trial. As far as copying it, the prosecution can take appropriate steps and remove that copy and copy it with their own facilities. We do not have facilities to produce a copy. The court says, if they're not using the other one, why should you be entitled to it? Ms. Nahara says, Well, Your Honor, this is something that depicts the same thing, and as Your Honor just said, we could take this and try. The court says, I said you have access to it. These scenes have been shown many times in many places, and anybody with a little effort can come up with those tapes. Ms. Natera says, the defense has a copy, Your Honor. We're in the middle of a trial, and as a courtesy, we ask the court to ask them. The court says, as a courtesy, you can ask them. It's not for the court to encourage courtesy to make someone give something else that they to give someone to give something they don't have to give. Basically, easy for me to say. If it was legally required, I'd order it. It's certainly within their discretion. So he's saying, I don't have to give it, or I don't have to order it. They don't have to give it to you, and it's up to them to give it to you. You can ask nicely and see if they will give it to you. As far as this particular tape here, it's certainly available for photocopy if you need it once it's been used by the defense. Are you going to use it tomorrow morning? When are you going to use it? Mr. Levin says, tomorrow, Your Honor. The court says, then they can have it for copying. Ms. Abramson says, since the people have raised a discovery issue, we're not talking courtesy here. They're still not providing us with a Bob Rand manuscript. Bob Rand, the journalist who became a witness in the first trial because he was um, taking statements of witnesses and things and doing journalistic work, investigative journalists do, and he was interviewing, I believe it was Perry Berman. It was one of Lyle's friends. Maybe it was Craig Signorelli. It was one of the two, I think. And they weren't being truthful in their statements on the stand versus what they had told Bob Rand in his manuscript. So they haven't turned over this Bob Rand manuscript. Excuse me, my throat is getting dry here talking so much. A protective order was presented to the prosecution 3 weeks ago to sign with respect to that. We want to make sure that nothing in that manuscript is utilized by Mr. Khan in this cross examination of our client. We have yet to have that hearing that we had asked for about the source of it. And I do understand what's happening so long. And I don't, sorry, words are hard. And I don't understand what's taking so long. They were given this protective order that we had all agreed to 2 weeks ago. They still haven't signed it. I assume it's an excuse not to turn it over, but we need to have it before they start cross examining our client to make sure they're not them, availing themselves of material that's protected by the shield of law, which they'll never prove up through the witness who is asserting the shield law. Well, without ruling upon that objection, which you might or might not make, when it is that the people will be turning over when is it that the people will be turning over the manuscript? Mr. Khan says we're ready to turn it over anytime. We've been ready to turn it over for months. I was provided with what counsel refers to as a protective order that we all agreed to. I don't know where counsel gets that agreement. Mr. Rand showed me a document weeks ago and I told him I don't agree to what's contained in the document. He said he's going to discuss it with his attorney and get back to me, and he never did. So we don't have an agreement that we all agreed to, but we still have the transcripts. And when the court orders us to turn it over, I'll turn it over. The court says, I recall it was with the understanding that we were waiting for a protective order to be prepared by Mr. Rand's counsel. Ms. Abramson says exactly. He's the one with the interest. It was not for the people to agree or disagree. It was since the people had said on the record that they weren't using. The court says that's why Mr. Khan reacted the way he did. You said it was agreed upon and agreed upon by the prosecution. Ms. Abramson says, well, court says it was a protective order to be provided by Mr. Rand's counsel, and I haven't seen or have any knowledge of it. If there is such, then that should be provided to the court. And if there is compliance with the discussions that we had and the orders made by the court, and Mr. Rand and his counsel were present, then the manuscript should be provided to the defense. Ms. Abramson says, right. And from what I can tell, that protective order did comply with the discussions that we had that I believe Mr. Khan was present for. The court says, I have no idea since I haven't seen it, so I can't say anything about it. So if there is some concern by the prosecution that there is some lack of compliance with the orders made by the court, and when Mr. Rand and his counsel were last here, then I'll certainly review that order. If there is no such concern, then you can turn it over to the defense, Mr. Khan. Mr. Khan says yes. The court says, so do you have any other concerns? Mr. Khan says, yes, I told him I disagree with the document. I am not going to sign something that I disagree with. If the court orders me to turn it over, I'll turn it over. The court says, what is your disagreement? Mr. Khan says, there was something in there about how we can use the material in court. I don't see why a man in who has written this material is going to try to limit the prosecution from how we can use this material. That's none of his concern, and that's what I told him, and he has no business putting in a clause to that effect. I don't know why he and his lawyers are concerned about giving the defense notice as to how we bring it about or how we use this material in court. This sounds more like it comes from the defense than comes from Mr. Rand and his lawyer. Ms. Abramson says, first of all, the prosecution has said, however insincerely in the past, that they had no intention of using anything from that manuscript, and we have indicated that it was our information, and in fact, Ms. Nahara did not contradict me, that the manuscript's stolen, protected by the shield, stolen, and in the hands of the prosecution. And we've been talking about this for months, and the prosecution has been refusing to reveal who stole it or how they got it. Wow. So they shouldn't even have this manuscript from Bob Rand. from whatever intermediate receiver or the thief himself. And therefore, they're saying that they had no intention of using it and they were happy to turn it over to the defense, which what led to the discussion about a protective order to protect Mr. Rand's privacy and interest in the material under all of the various protections, including the Shield Law. Now, counsel is offended because someone's telling him that he can't use it in court when he's previously said he had no intention of doing so. Now, maybe Mr. Khan lied and he does intend to use it, or maybe it's just a matter of pride and he doesn't like anybody telling him anything. But either way, it seems to me that a protective order that tells him he can't use what he said he didn't want to use anyway shouldn't have been so offensive to him, unless it is unless it is just a matter of willfulness on his part. I love her. Mr. Khan says, well, once again, we should correct for the record that nothing has been stolen in this case. As much as counsel wants to continually assert that to be the truth, there's no evidence to support that. That is simply not the truth. Ms. Abramson says, well, as soon as counsel wants to tell me. Mr. Khan says, all I do. The court says, one person at a time, Ms. Abramson. Okay. It's not okay. That's just the way it is. Go ahead, Mr. Khan. Ms. Abramson was trying to respond to him, but okay. Mr. Khan goes, he's still got the floor apparently. He says, once again, I would ask if counsel has a copy of that document from Mr. Rand that it be provided to the court so the court can review the document. The court says, all right, well, obviously, if there is a protective order, unless it's a stipulation or agreement between counsel, which is not an order at all, any order would have to be signed by the court. Ms. Abramson says, I don't have these documents, Mr. Rand does. Court says, I assume the way it's characterized as an order that then it's a document to be signed by the court. If it's a stipulation by counsel, then I don't have to see it. So that's the way it is. And at this point, the people don't feel that they can sign the document, so the ball is still with Mr. Rand. If this is a document that is a stipulation rather than something to be signed by the court, I have no idea what it is. If you want to present it to me, I can look at it, but I haven't seen anything. We'll be in recess until tomorrow at 8:30, and they adjourn. Oh, I'm sorry, this was December 13th. I lied. It was the 13th, not the 12th. This whole time I thought it was the 12th. Anyways, it's the 13th, and we will continue to next week's episode with the 14th of December. Is that yeah, I think it's during the week. It's not the weekend yet. So, yeah. So that whole thing at the end was basically just arguments over discovery and that manuscript from Rob Rand. I guess somehow prosecution got their hands on it when the defense didn't want them to yet, and I don't know. I don't know the whole deal, but that's what it seemed like was going on. And the the prosecution doesn't agree to whatever the stipulation is from Bob Rand to be able to use the manuscript. He gave him limitations on what they could use the manuscript for, which as a journalist, he probably has rights, and that doesn't sit well with Mr. Khan apparently, so it became a big thing. But anyways, we will continue and find out more. Hopefully we finish up the direct soon here with Erik and start on cross very shortly. So thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Take care. That's the end of this Trial Transcripts Exposed. Thanks for following along with me. Like if you want more, subscribe, and let me know what you think in the comments below. See you next time.